Thank you all so much for joining us tonight. Betty, if you would kindly let the record reflect that the board met in executive session to discuss matters leading to the employment, promotion, demotion, discipline, suspension, dismissal, or removal of a particular person or person proposed pending in current litigation and collective negotiations pursuant to Article 14 of the Civil Service Law. Thank you. And first on our agenda is student recognition. Thank you all so much for coming. Dr. Giarrusso.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, so we are recognizing three groups of students tonight. We have students who participated in the Long Island Math Fair, students who performed in the Long Beach Math Tournament, and we have our National Merit semifinalists and commended students. We have a record number of students here tonight who have done really well on that exam, so congratulations to all of you. So I'm going to come around the front with board president. I'm going to call your name. Okay, so it's our first go at student recognition this year, and we also have, you get a certificate. I'm going to read a few words about you, and you get a North Shore pen, maybe the first of many in your career, I hope. And when you're done, you'll stay up here, we'll take a picture. Okay? So we'll start with the Long Island Math Fair. So we're pleased to support our students who are interested in exploring mathematics topics outside the scope of the curriculum. Each year, students from North Shore Middle and High School spend months exploring a topic that fascinates them, some of them even contributing original work to the field of mathematics. These students conduct research and prepare a paper and a presentation which they deliver and defend in front of a panel of judges and peers from across Long Island. The competition is held annually at Hofstra University, and at the end of last year, the following students advanced to the final round and earned medals for their work. So when I call your name, come on up. Thank you. Sophie Blumenthal. Michael, how are you?
Sophie's at Madrigal's rehearsal tonight.
Okay, fair enough. Olivia Lamont. Noah Lee. Harrison Levin. Esme Riley. Esme?
Yes,
Sorry.
it's okay.
Esme. I apologize.
It's okay.
And Kelly Weber. Okay, Shelley. Thank you.
And to the parents, thanks parents.
Thank you all very much. Good job. Okay, the Long Beach Math Tournament by the Sea is, as opposed to not by the sea, right? Right. Our middle school mathletes competed once again at the second annual Long Beach Math Tournament by the Sea, which is an Olympiad-style competition that includes an individual round, a team round, and a mixed team round. In each of these three categories, North Shore students shined bright. Some of tonight's honorees have moved on to the high school, but we are glad to have them back here tonight to recognize them for their accomplishments. And they are.
And the pen goes to?
Noah Lee.
Congratulations. You had a pen. You need it for the-
Daniel Leonard. Nathaniel Brower. Matthias Bush Freyers. Noah Lee, second place overall team. Harrison Levin again. Matt Machowitz. Very good. Thank you. Let's see, we're starting with commended? Okay. Okay, so the National Merit semifinalists and commended students are here to join us tonight. The National Merit Scholarship Corporation is a not-for-profit organization that operates without government assistance. It was established in 1955 specifically to conduct the annual National Merit Scholarship Program. Scholarships are underwritten by the National Merit Scholarship Corporation with its own funds and by approximately 440 business organizations and higher education institutions that share their goals of honoring the nation's scholastic champions and encouraging the pursuit of academic excellence. All Merit Scholar designees are selected on the basis of their skills, accomplishments, and potential for success in rigorous college studies without regard to gender, race, ethnic origin, or religious preference. To be considered for a merit scholarship, semifinalists must fulfill several requirements to advance to the finalist level of the competition. 1.6 million juniors in more than 22,000 high schools entered the competition by taking the preliminary SAT National Merit Scholarship Qualifying Exam, which served as the initial screen of program entrance. That's a lot of kids, right? The nationwide pool of semifinalists represents less than 1% of the U.S. high school seniors and includes the highest scoring entrants in each state. Super impressive. Approximately 16,000 semifinalists throughout the nation are being recognized for their exceptional academic promise. These talented high school seniors have an opportunity to continue in their competition for approximately 7,500 National Merit Scholarships worth more than $32 million. That will be offered next spring. In February 2020, semifinalists will be notified if they advance to the finalist level, and those semifinalists you'll see, you have to do an application for that. In addition, about 34,000 commended students throughout the nation are being recognized for their exceptional academic promise. Commended students place among the top 50,000 scorers of more than 1.5 million students who entered the 2020 competition by taking the PSAT. So I'm going to call your name and you come up, and we're going to start with our commended students. So, commended students, Ethan Amanov. Sonia Rose Bogolubov. Melissa Brugman. Carolyn Doyle. Will you take the on her behalf? If you want to take the picture, you're welcome to. If you wouldn't- yeah. Camille Girdle. Catherine Hunt. Izzy Lerman. Mary Sotomayor. That is all of them. Thank you. Whatever you like.
Ready? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3.
Great, thank you. So Mary, you wrote that great piece last year for the Viking View. Do you see it's like we're going to vote on
Yes.
December 10th?
Yes, I saw.
So cool.
It's exciting.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so now our semifinalists. Okay. Dylan Hull. Kira McCreary. And Molly McPartland. Beautiful picture on our website.
Yeah.
And the other one's going up. Recommended students. will know what it is.
Thank you all very much.
Watch this. Oh, first we're going to do the minutes and then we'll do that. All right, we got it. Okay, trustees.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, parents, so much for coming out tonight. It was wonderful to see you, and thank you for letting us congratulate your children tonight. We enjoyed every minute of that as well. And you're welcome to stay, but
And you're welcome to go.
if children have homework.
Thank you.
Trustees, next up for us is the approval of the minutes. Then we'll have the report of the superintendent, and then we'll get to the report from our new SGO reps. On the approval of the minutes, do I have a motion?
Motion.
And I have a second. Questions or comments? All in favor? Thank you. Dr. Giaruzzo, your report.
Thank you. So, want to offer congratulations to our semifinalists and committed scholars once again. Really proud of them. Much of this past week has been about launching the year, setting routines. In addition, we've been setting information and awareness about the upcoming bond into motion that is scheduled for December 10th, 2019. Since the last time we've met together, we've scheduled a series of community forums, bus tours, focus groups, and information sessions with many of our parents and community groups. So please be on the lookout for them. There are opportunities for everybody in the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening. We even have a Saturday session. This evening, Dr. Rufa and I were available to provide a bus tour right here at Glen Head. And please remember to register to vote for that December 10 referendum. If you're not going to be in town, you can get an absentee ballot. I do want to congratulate Shelley Newman and commend her and share that the district website has received an award of merit. And last year's budget newsletter has received an award of honor from the New York State Public Relations Association. Congratulations, Charlie. To our WebCola team, Scott, a North Shore graduate, and you really do very good work. I really enjoy working with you. You're welcome. Many of you will have seen the letter that Allison Camarodella and I wrote about vaping this week. It is a clear crisis, and we're working in tandem with North Shore CASA to reach students directly this year. The introduction of our health and wellness teacher, elementary counselor, corresponding curriculums, and a new director of counseling have positioned us with a few very strong foundations to move forward with greater coordination and cohesion. So please be sure to reach out to North Shore CASA, me, or any of your principals about the work that is occurring. We have a lot of exciting events happening for Red Ribbon Week. I'm also pretty excited to announce the elimination of many plastic products from our cafeterias. Ms. Bawatsi. This is not one of them, obviously. Plastic straws will, right. Plastic straws will be completely eliminated. Paper cups will replace plastic containers, and wax paper will replace plastic wrap for sandwiches. Good job. These are supposed to go away as well, but we're working on it. All plates and trays are compostable, and we are researching compostable options for cutlery as well. So they are very costly, and they don't hold up particularly well, so we're just doing a little research on what's the best option, but cool stuff, right? And then each of the schools have a whole recycling, composting line that they're running through. That is meeting with greater success with older people than it is with younger people, particularly the liquids, but we're working through it. Right. So be on the lookout for that. But we're off to a really terrific start. Energy is really positive. It's great to have kids back in schools, and we're looking forward to a really terrific year and a lot of good work getting folks informed about the upcoming bond.
Terrific. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I'm excited to announce that we have our new SGO reps with us this evening. We're excited to hear about what's going on in our schools. And just, if you would, for everyone, if you would just introduce yourselves and tell us. And yes, we're going to put on your microphone. And
Okay, thank you. So my name is Sam Skorda.
My name is Christian Janae.
And we're the two SGO co-presidents this year. So this year, well, actually, let me start with what we have concrete so far. So right now, we're getting ready for homecoming, and so we had a meeting today. We solidified all of the days that we were doing for Spirit Week. So we're looking forward to that. It's the week of Columbus Day, I think, and
19th.
We're deciding because the high school has a time allotted from, I believe, like 10:30 to 12:30, and so we're still deciding what to do during that time. And so we're meeting with Mr. Cousins tomorrow to decide what we should do regarding that time. So yeah.
And we're also looking forward to Red Ribbon Week. So since this year's theme is Send a Message, we're planning on having all extracurricular clubs and athletic teams have their own, be able to purchase T-shirts and make their own message on how to combat substance abuse. And then lastly, kind of just want to hit upon like our goals for the year. So we're really trying to increase student involvement in extracurriculars this year, and we're trying to find ways to do that because we've noticed that sports night and just a few other things have been the main focus for a lot of high schoolers. Mm-hmm. So we want to try to increase involvement among all types of kids in our school instead of, we tend to see the usual crowd at most of our events, and we want to really be able to get everybody involved. So that's our main focus this year.
Great goal.
Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you guys so much for coming and sharing that with us. We really appreciate your time. And you are more than welcome to stay for the entire meeting. But if it should happen that you have, say, school responsibilities that you need to attend to, I also want to indicate that it's completely okay. In fact, the board supports your education. You feel free to do what you feel is right for you.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you.
You're
Thank
welcome. See you soon. You too. Take care, Sam.
All right. Next up, trustees, on to, oh, no, we're not on to regular business.
Comments from the public.
We're up to comments from the public. If there's anyone here that wishes to share any thoughts with the board, we encourage you to do so. Thank you. They're wearing badges. Those are just, yep, yeah. All right, trustees,
We
on
had
to.
no one, and yet we're actually losing people.
I was like, God, what did you?
James, you're sure?
If someone could blur the doors, we can't really afford, no. We will move on to regular business. Action item A is our personnel. Do I have a motion? Do I have a second? Second. Do I have any questions or comments on personnel? All in favor? Thank you, trustees. Action B is the approval of the budget transfers. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Questions? All in favor? Thank you. Action C, approval to dispose of the inventory. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
And I have a second. All in favor? Thank you. Action D is the approval of the agreement between North Shore and Navaraki. I'd like to move to table this motion until we have the full board and discussion there. Do I have a, I so move. Do I have a second on that? Questions or discussion on the motion to table? All in favor of tabling the motion? Thank you. Action E is the approval between North Shore School District and the Nassau County Board of Elections for the equipment for the December 10 vote. Do I have a motion?
Motion. Second.
And a second. Questions? All in favor? Thank you, trustees. Action F is the approval of the agreement between North Shore and SJP Personal Development for the Wellness Day presentation at the middle school. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
A second? Questions?
I have a question.
I thought you might.
This contract isn't in our usual form contract. Did we have council reviewed? I noticed there's a time of the essence provision in it, which I always strike from all my contracts.
I reviewed it, essentially complied with our usual terms. It was their format, but I made sure it complied with all the requirements. It was just quicker to get it done that way. I know that this is something that was important.
All right. Okay, as long as you reviewed it. I didn't find anything objectionable in it, but I just wanted to make sure council reviewed it because it wasn't our format.
Exactly.
Thank you. Other questions? All in favor? We'll combine actions G, H, and I, which are service providers for IEPs. Do I have a motion? Motion. Second?
Second.
Questions? All in favor? Action item J is the approval of the agreement between North Shore and Gloria Wilson Strategic Training and Research, which is relates to special education but for professional development. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second? All in favor? Action K, approval of the agreement between North Shore and Extraordinary Pediatrics. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
A second?
Second.
Questions? All in favor? Action L is the agreement between North Shore and Oyster Bay East Norwich School District. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
A second? Questions? All in favor? Action M is the approval of a resolution for emergency repair work. This is with regard to the fire panel that has failed at Glenwood Landing, so that we can use funds from the emergency repair fund to make this repair. It also then obligates us to replace those funds, replace the funds we're using from the reserve fund. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second?
And a second. Questions?
Why do we have to replace it? Isn't this what the emergency repair fund is aimed at?
Yeah, I'm
Because
so glad
it's
you
in
asked.
it's an emergency repair, an unanticipated
Yes.
repair that we couldn't have picked up in our 5-year and annual assessments, right?
Yes.
So why do we have to repay it?
I
So
asked the same. I'm so
I-
glad you brought this up. It's fascinating.
it's not the repair reserve is not called the emergency repair reserve. The repair reserve is called the repair reserve, right? The reason why we have to replace it is because if you don't have voter approval to take it out, right? Because normally you would put this in the budget or,
Let me clear it.
Go ahead.
You have to have a public hearing to take monies from the repair reserve, and it has to be published, it has to stay for 5 days before.
And a hearing takes 2 meetings.
It takes two weeks.
You have to have the notice. and
We
then-
can do the hearing and then at the same board meeting, but because this is an emergency, if it's an emergency, then you have to have 2/3 approval from your Board of Education, and then it requires you to replenish it. Only if it's an emergency, and because this is an emergency, that's why we have to
We
replenish.
didn't have to replenish them when we used it for the one-room schoolhouse.
Oh, we
Remember, we
did.
did the wall?
We did.
No,
We-
it
we
wasn't
did
in the
replenish it.
resolution to
Yeah,
re.
we
re-
did
I
replenish
would,
it.
it may, but it may was not, definitely not in the resolution.
Right, I don't know that
Oh,
it
no,
was.
it
I don't-
wasn't in the
It wasn't in the
resolution.
resolution.
Because I
You're
would have
right.
noticed that right
You're
away.
right.
Because it is just the law. It's statutorily required whether we
Yeah.
approve it or not, because
So
of the
what's,
fact that it's an
so what is
emergency.
the point of having a repair reserve? Because you can't use it for anything that you should have anticipated. And if you're using it for something you didn't anticipate, you have to replace it. It kind of seems like they're tying your hands behind your back.
Well,
That's really what it's for those two purposes. Either if you have an anticipated repair, you have a public hearing, you approve it, and you don't have to pay that. But in cases of emergency, it allows you to use the money right away without a public hearing, but then you do have to replenish.
But we were told that you can't use it for anything that should have come up on your building ground survey.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
So,
right. So
the idea that you would use it for an anticipated repair and have a hearing on it is ridiculous, because you can't use it for that, because you're limited by your,
I agree. And so I'm sort of like, no other entity other than school districts is subjected to rules anywhere near this.
that make no sense.
And theoretically, there could be some kind of like emergency that's not like right this minute, but what is that, right?
Well, I think if it's not this minute, then we probably should have gotten in our building condition survey, right? If it's on your building condition survey, it should have been,
I'm with
like
you.
a roof, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can't use it to replace the roof.
No.
If the roof falls and if you
Because it's also the
should,
building
right.
condition service.
And so
has
Right.
something
my astonishment over the state affairs made me point out that we have to put the money back.
I've never seen that in the resolution.
This is the first I've heard. But without the public hearing, that's.
7
that-
years.
that is
7
the
years,
law.
I've never seen it.
You and me both, sister.
The resolution was prepared by
Here we are.
James. and
Here
he
we
was
are.
not clear.
I'm thinking.
James put this
Okay,
resolution.
If
this
the town of
is
Oyster
a
Bay
lack
had an
assignment.
emergency-
We need to petition,
You are not kidding, yes.
that, we need to
This
petition
is
to get
crazy
this
town.
changed, because this makes no sense.
100% no sense. Because
No sense.
if it's an right. Especially given the somewhat controversial nature of reserve funds and the whole thing.
Right.
Yes.
Ridiculous. You might as well have it.
Well, are there any other questions about the use of the emergency repair funds?
I do apologize for misspeaking on that. Some of the reserves require voter approval, and we were just clarifying that, so
Right,
thank you
but
for
that's-
that.
That's
Yeah.
not the point of our.
No, I know, no, I get,
This
no,
is
I,
extremely similar to
absolutely.
what you
Yeah, no, I
were
just
saying,
want to,
right.
yeah.
We get that. Trustees, you ready to vote? All in favor? borrowing money from the repair fund?
Borrowing our own money
Borrowing our own money.
that we have to repay.
Yes. Okay. Yes. All right, we're moving on to board committees. I believe there was a LAC meeting.
Yes. We had a LAC meeting last night, good turnout, good start. We have a streamlined group as per our new bylaws, and there was a lot of good energy. We spent a lot of time discussing LAC's role as a conduit of information between the board and the community, and there were some good ideas about how to grow that awareness, both to in-school communities like parent groups, through concerts and back-to-school nights and parent-teacher conference nights, et cetera, but also outside of school groups to engage the community and let them know what we're doing through the various organizations, social media, and non-social media, or other ways to reach folks more traditionally. And we set up some ideas for that will grow throughout the year. I mentioned to them that there were some things they had wanted to do, and although they take their direction from the board, I was very clear that the board is always interested in hearing what they have to suggest to us also. So we are certainly open to hearing those things. They felt that last year's structure, which was good, but was divided into sort of work teams on specific topics, with a smaller group wasn't as necessary. So what they plan to do instead is for our next meeting, which will be October 16th, it's really going to be a work session to plan an in-district legislative breakfast that we had talked about. And that is something they're excited about doing, reaching our local legislators, to talk with us in our district, to familiarize ourselves with them, to get them to know us, to hear us, and strengthen that conduit. There was talk of a legislative night, which last year we had talked about planning. In the group, someone asked the question, which I thought was pretty good. They were sort of saying it's devil's advocate, but what do we hope to accomplish with this legislative night? And the reality is there were some pauses. I think because of New York American Water, we've had a lot of access to our legislators, and we have, in all candor, struggled to have really a lot of attendance for those events as a community. So I think the goal is going to be to start first in this legislative breakfast, and then from there, determine if we want to have a legislative night. Because going through all that effort and bringing it up and having it be about education when the community may not show up for that, and to bring our legislators out again for that is going to be tricky, especially because we would have to do it as per past precedent after the election, which would be less incentive to have our legislators come. So that's still in the works, but not defined, and a little bit backburnered. One of the other topics we discussed was, in the past, there had been a super LAC, which I'm sure everyone here knows, but just because we're on tape, were the LACs from two other communities, Manhasset and Garden City, where we had an organization we would talk about opportunities to talk about common interests. Those two LACs have become more dormant and less interested in participating in super LAC. So last year, Peter had suggested that we work with, maybe more informally, with some of our closer neighboring districts in our quadrant with whom Peter has a relationship, and we'd like to really talk more about that. And maybe, Peter, if you can gauge that interest, that it could be done, Sarah, not to volunteer, but maybe starting from a board president to a board president level to get that communication going. Peter, you can facilitate that and confirm that's something that they want to do, and then talk about those common issues that we share. We set meeting dates for the year, which I had asked our chairperson, Cheryl Brown, to pass on to Betty. We elected a new secretary, Jen Lamond, or I guess an old secretary. She's not old, but she was in the position last year. And that's a summary.
Thank you.
Experienced, yes. Yes.
I know we also had district health and safety. Rich, would you like to report on that to the best of your recollection? I'll chime in if I think of something.
Sure. So we had our introductory meeting for the year, and we met the new, or the potential new Director of Security for the district, Mr. Ahern, and we discussed many of the issues we left off with in the prior meeting from June. Just sort of follow up. A lot of things still need to be worked on. In particular, we looked at things like that were successful, the Stop the Bleed program, which will probably look to continue. Once again, Dr. Girizzo introduced us to the new app that's available in terms of Say Something, which was, it potentially is going to be actually very beneficial for everybody in the district. And the initial feedback from it has been pretty good. And we looked at, again, we looked at some of the other issues that we've had concerns with, food allergies. Pretty much what we've been talking about right along.
I think that's fair.
Spent a good amount of time on vaping.
I was like, and yes, I would add that I thought we had a good conversation about vaping.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Dr. Giarrizzo talked about trying both to deal with, kids who may already be vaping, but also trying to keep an eye towards younger kids and the steps we need to take to make sure we don't, more kids don't begin vaping. And we had some very good conversations about, given the statistics that we have on how many kids in our district have tried e-cigarettes, and our data is a couple of years old, so we suspect the rates are much higher, that what should we do so that we could be prepared if a kid got sick in school, right? Can we get more training for the nursing staff so that they're better able to recognize what might be the beginning of a very serious illness, which whereas in the past you would have been like, you had the flu, let me call your parents kind of thing. And how they would then communicate with the parents, and because it's, at a crisis level. And the superintendent talked about if we were going to get vaping detection devices, the other kinds of things and infrastructure that you need around that, and what his thinking was about how that might integrate in with those very first phases of the bond and the security improvements. But you're more than welcome to say more. That could be,
Great.
if you feel that's sufficient. It's up to you. Do you think we left anything out from that?
No, I don't think so.
Elaborate on that?
No. With regard to the detection systems, right? So they are, they come in various different qualities. And so we're thinking that we want to pilot something in some high frequency spots, both at the middle school and the high school, see where it goes, and then determine the best path forward for more implementation. That said, we do know that the systems work best when they are tied centrally into our security systems. So going into with the bond referendum up in December and coordinating the vaping detection system in the bathrooms with the security and wiring upgrades that we're doing could be a better long-term solution. But we want to have the companies come and give us some information on implementation, costs, and get some data. The feedback we get from when we reach out to other districts, frankly, is mixed. So sometimes it works well, sometimes it doesn't work so well, and until it gets under control in a real substantial way, the school administration is essentially spending most of their days chasing down vaping notifications that are happening throughout the building. So that doesn't mean we shouldn't do it, but it is
That would be alarming also.
that would be extremely alarming, but not impossible to conceive it happening. So that's where we are with.
I think that's a message.
Is that a motion detector?
Wow, that's impressive. 8, 9, 10, 11 people at a table, not moving enough, right? All right, so that's
Sitting is the new smoking.
that's right. That's why I have a standing desk. So anyway, that's where that discussion was. Are there any questions that I can answer on that, or I'm happy to do so.
Did any other committees meet that I'm overlooking? Nothing? No one's had a secret committee? Okay. Then we're up to all business.
Did the flyers go out on the community members for LAC and auditing?
They have not. We
And
did
the-
not hear from anyone on the drafts. Did anyone have any comments?
No.
All right, then we can send them.
So that would be construction steering, auditing, and LAC, right?
They're right here.
But yeah, we have them. So we were
You
just
have them
waiting to
all?
see if anybody, yeah,
Okay.
had a comment. So
So they'll go out this
Shelley
week?
will talk.
Because we're getting later.
Depending on getting them printed and,
I think there's a lack number that we name on it.
Is it what now?
Lack, a number of persons,
I think it's
Only
okay
one.
if it's like,
one.
yeah,
so we can talk about that.
yeah.
Or good to go.
We'll look at it. I think we're good.
I'm good to go.
We can do that, but let's talk and confirm and make sure you're good, and then we'll do it.
Okay.
Other old business?
I want to check and see if I have anything for follow-up. Hold on. Sarah? let me
I was
just-
going to say, Tim had brought up about having Fraser Feldman look at, to give us more guidance on field trips and whether,
Greenfield.
when the school district, specifically the Greenfield, but in general, when the district should be covering costs and when the kids should be paying it, and that's in progress.
Yes.
And we'll hear more about that in the future. Also, we got a lot of follow-up on the communications about the new homework policy. And Tim had also asked about follow-up on the tutoring and coaching policies, which you said had gone out.
Yes.
And we're looking at some particular instances, but this is also ongoing and in process. And I think that's what I had from his email.
Those were Tim's, yep. So let me just make sure I have nothing here for you.
By which we mean Tim Madden, our trustee, who couldn't make it tonight.
Okay, so we still have open, we are working on getting the policies under review section up on the website. We haven't forgotten about that.
Right?
It just
Right.
hasn't been executed yet.
And I'll elaborate on that. Like, this is an
Yes.
effort to make sure that when we're reviewing a section of policies, that the public knows what we're looking at, and then likewise, when we're reviewing them in the meeting, that they can be easily looked at on the website without us printing 10,000 pages for the people that are interested in seeing them.
That's exactly right. Trustee Vizza had asked us to develop a satisfaction survey for EAP. The PDC is going to design that survey instrument, send it in mid-October. PDC has their first meeting coming up, I think, in a week or so. We did want to follow back with, there was a question about the $38,000. Where did that number come from in the, on the netting? Right, because then so we did some research on this. So actually went back and watched the tape again to see what number, on the 8th, when we talked about the cost of the netting. Stu Schiller had said he wasn't unsure of the estimate, but he did some backing out of numbers based on the bleachers with the netting, without the netting, and so he came up with that 38,000. He said it might be in the range of 40 to 50,000, but he needed to confirm, and that's where that budget transfer amount. Just to close the circle on why that budget transfer amount was, I think it was, you said it at 60, am I right? 50 or 60,000. But that's how that came to be. Okay, homework policy we dealt with. Okay, I think that covers everything.
I think you may have answered
Answered?
this previously.
Yes.
But I believe you've said we're going to do Bach Harrison or similar again this year. but
Yes.
Do we, is that,
So we are.
Is that firmed up or
Yes.
definite or?
Yep. So we are definitely going to do the Bach Harrison this year. When I went back and looked at when we administered it the last time, originally I think it was talking about October, November, it was actually in January.
So you'd like to be consistent?
So we want to be consistent. We'll re-administer it again this January. We are working on customizing some questions. So there were some questions raised about family structures and all of that.
There are a number of questions that are very specifically,
Yep.
like several of them. Do you get along with your father?
Mm-hmm.
Does your father talk to you about how you feel? And then likewise with mother also.
Yes.
But just like it's very specific in a way that didn't feel
Yep.
modern.
So so I had that conversation with the social workers, and we're going to go through and comb through all those questions because they can be customized. And then we'll be customizing our own set of questions based on what we need. And if there are things at the board level that you'd like to know, please just email me, and I will make sure that we get your priorities included in the survey because we definitely have time to do that.
I could be delusional, but I believe trustee Commander is concerned about the time frame.
I just think earlier in the year, I'm not sure I can explain this without you having been involved in the process, but I think that you want to pick up that information in October or November, early in the year when kids are younger. I think the comparison is more accurate for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
So just if you would do some research on
I will.
on that.
Yes, happy to.
And so, because we would foresee doing this 2 years again from now, and so you're saying if we
Absolutely.
get into the October,
The other
November
thing-
timeframe and then stick with that, it's a better gauge?
Yes, the other thing that I would say is that we always used to use the New York State Youth Risk Survey,
Mm-hmm.
and we moved to Bach Harrison. And in as much as there are similar content areas and questions, I think because of some of the issues we've had in the community, it's really important that we use the same instrument. And any concern that we've had, it really formulated in the questions, because we can really make this a very personal thing
Yes.
for ourselves. So my suggestion would be that certainly we should do Bach Harrison rather than the New York State Risk Assessment Survey.
Okay.
But I do want to, we did have some significant numbers on the vaping issue from the last Bach Harrison. That was 2 years ago, so we've had information about this for 2 years. And my concern about the substance abuse education that we are doing is that it feels like we react to crises, we react to tragedies, and I think all of us feel helpless, and we kind of put together programs, class presentations, for instance. And I think that's very critical in raising the awareness in terms of the information on risks. But we know very, very clearly that those types of presentations really don't have a long-term effect on kids.
Right.
They're very scared for a couple of days or a week, but it usually leaves them after that. And I think that we've made some great strides in terms of the wellness and the social worker. I would love to see a plan how that is integrated and work together, because otherwise it's going to be, these pieces of the wheel doing things that have no coordination. The big thing I think we're missing here is that we continue to opt for one-day shot programs for information rather than having a long-term plan. And there are evidence-based programs, drug education, substance abuse education programs that are out there that are very legitimate. Some of them rated statistically very high. One of the ones that I've talked about for years has been the one at Cornell University. It's called Life Skills Training. It is the model. OASIS calls it the model of substance education program. We need, if we really want to take care of the kids in our community, we need a comprehensive approach. And I think that we're moving in that direction, but I also think you need to look at, and I know teachers have worked on curricula, but there's some out there that is proven, and I think that we need to grab that stuff and put it in. And some of it can be for parents, some of it can be after-school programs, so you can do it, the delivery program could be in 100 different ways. But I think that when we continue to do these isolated programs for parent awareness, scaring kids, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. And knowing that, it's hard to watch us continue to do that without doing the other piece that I think is really important.
I think you make a really good point about evidence-based programs, and I think everyone here from time to time has indicated that's what we're interested in. I think the good news too, though, is that the way the middle school is structured with the E3 squad time and the way the high school is structured so that there's some common small group time. You know, and we did it with the concept that counselors could push in and that there was curriculum there. And for all the reasons we set it up, those small group times do exist. You have put the structure in place so that we can respond, you know, in these really appropriate ways. So I feel very positively about that, right? Because if you didn't have that structure in place, this would be much, much harder to accomplish.
Yeah, so we talked about this for a few minutes, I think it was yesterday, yeah. And I happen to agree with you, right? So there is value in large group presentations, there's value in parent education, obviously. What we need to be doing now is getting right into small groups with kids and doing that education. It has to be integrated throughout the curriculum. I totally agree. What we have, where we are sort of in the dynamics of our evolution now, we have a new counselor, we have a new director of counseling, we have a new health and wellness teacher, we have a new curriculum, and so those things are all in their, you know, their infancy and newness, and now the next step is coordinating all that work in an integrated way. So it is the next logical work that we will do.
Okay, I just again, our overriding decision on what we do, where we do it, we need a cognitive behavioral approach so we can change behavior.
Yes, I agree.
That's the goal.
Yes.
So I didn't know we had very many people wanted to speak about this also, but I had spoken about it with Peter earlier in the week. And I think this is something that probably should be elevated to a discussion item for the board, so we can put all these pieces together, the vaping detection systems, the curriculum questions, outside organizations, what we've been doing, and really approach it and talk about it with the board, but also really publicize it with the community and give them an opportunity as well. So I don't have a specific prescription of what that might be, whether it's potentially a return to one of the town hall formats that we had talked about, although in the past we haven't really been clear as to the difference between that and public comment. But I think this might be an avenue to pursue that and flesh it out a little bit.
But if we even just schedule discussion, it could drive.
And I think it's at that level. I think it's important. You know, we're facing the same things that all districts face. But I think that the board, certainly as we all know, our numbers compared with neighboring communities, they're not good, and they haven't been good, and that's why we've been trying to react as a community. But I think it's something we would like to become a leader on, and I think that on the board level, having a discussion about that would be a good place to further that.
So we can add I just spent time with the administrators the other day, I think it was yesterday, talking about laying out the board discussion calendar for the rest of the year that I'll be sending home to the board, so we will fit that into the queue, if that's okay. Yes?
Yes. I think we all are feeling the pressure of, you know, that there are teenagers right now hospitalized on Long Island with
Yes, they are.
very severe lung damage, and we're aware of our statistics.
Peter, if I can suggest, Sharon Harris has a tremendous amount of experience with Bach Harrison individualizing questions for specific communities. A conversation from her in terms of some of the ideas, because she's done it already. Those questions would be written, so we would have to maybe spin our wheels, and I think that would be good input for us.
Okay, no problem.
And done in a way that would that would make it so 2 years from now, at that point, we could just change the date and run it again, so we really would have year-over-year comparison
Well,
data.
No, because there'll be a different prices at that time.
That is true, but the more you can standardize things and certainly get rid of the internal biases that are contained in the document, clean it up, it'll make it that much more launchable.
I mean, and there is danger in personalizing questions, right? Because then you don't necessarily have the norms and the benchmarks that you're comparing it to, and you can make errors in how you're,
So our social workers we have our social workers working on that stuff now, so I'll see what they come up with, and then I can always get in touch with Sharon. I know her well.
She's just done this for 25 years, so.
Yep,
yes. I think we're still in old business. That could have been new, old
I
new.
wasn't sure, but we're going there, so.
I think we've transitioned from old to new. Do I have any new business? New business? I would ask if we needed to have another section of public comment, but apparently no. Which doesn't mean we don't appreciate those of you who are here. Motion to adjourn.
Motion.
The North Shore School
I was like, motion